I got home early, checked my email, and saw my wife with her lover at the office Christmas party. I happened to drive by a motel and noticed her car parked outside a room. There must be easier ways for a clueless husband to find out about his wife cheating, right? But maybe not. Maybe there are only a few ways for a man to realize his marriage is over. In my case, I was so blinded by love for my wife of 10 years that it took a big shock for me to see what was really happening between her and her fling. For the past 6 months, I didn't have a clue. Shannon and I actually met in college when we were sophomores, and we clicked right away. She had thick blonde hair, blue eyes, a pretty face, and a slim figure with long legs. Basically, she was perfect in my eyes. But besides all that, what really got me was her intelligence, wit, and charm. I could chat with her for hours about anything under the sun. We became best buds, and after dating for 3 months, we started to really open up to each other in new ways. So, back then I felt like it was the best time of my life. After that moment, I had no doubts that Shannon and I would be together forever. Turns out, we lasted 10 years. Anyways, I go by Stu, short for Stuart Gray. I'm from a decent-sized town in the Midwest. I'm 6 feet tall, 187 pounds, with brown eyes and sandy hair. I'm a contractor and I run a small company with a team of 5 people. We mostly do interior work. We're doing some remodeling for those who can drop some cash, and our work is top-notch. Shannon teaches music at the high school down the block, and we both make a decent living. Our crib is dope, and since we're both in our 30s, we're thinking about starting a fam soon. We had a great first decade of marriage, cuddling every night like it was a law, and every morning waking up next to Shannon. I can't help but admire her beauty and feel lucky to have her as my wifey. Honestly, I wouldn't want it any other way. I would totally be with her every single day, even if it meant risking my life for her. I would do it without thinking twice. Actually, I should have used past tense for that last sentence because something so crazy and emotional happened to me that I still haven't fully recovered from it. As a Midwest contractor, we mostly work in the spring, summer, and fall. People don't want their homes torn apart when it's freezing outside and covered in snow. Shannon and I used to hang out a lot. During Christmas, New Year's, and spring break, when I was working, Shannon would sometimes take a week off to visit family, go shopping with her sisters, or take a couple of summer courses to help with her teaching degree. Our go-to winter vacation spot was always somewhere warm, and that winter we decided on an all-inclusive resort in the Bahamas for 2 weeks of paradise to reconnect physically and spiritually. But I soon realized how dumb that idea was, and first and foremost, I should. Just to make it clear, when me and Shannon got on that plane in Minneapolis, I had no idea at all. If you had told me our marriage was messed up, I would have called you a liar and probably punched you in the face. We were perfect together, so in love and connected in every way possible. It was like we were one person split into 2 bodies. Our bond was unbreakable, nothing could tear us apart. I was so caught up in it all, didn't even see the storm coming, even though I didn't know it then. I was about to jump into the abyss, feeling like things were about to go south for me, when I first got a weird vibe. It happened when I was going through security at the Minneapolis-St. Paul International Airport. The line was crazy long, with a bunch of folks trying to escape the freezing cold for some tropical vibes. Shannon and I were waiting in line to go through the scanners when I noticed this guy next to us checking out Shannon. Now, my wife is a real looker, so it's not unusual for guys to give her the eye, but this time it felt different, like he was up to something. Trying to get her to notice me, I pretended to check my boarding pass while sneaking a peek at the guy out of the corner of my eye. His glances at her were shady, to say the least. And then it hit me. Shannon gave him a quick look and a subtle wave of her hand, like saying, "Not now." He smiled and nodded, and I nearly dropped my food. I was shocked when I realized they were acquainted in some way. I didn't know how, but that realization was a warning sign for me as we went through security. I kept an eye on them and neither of them tried to contact Ed again. I knew I had gone quiet, but Shannon didn't seem to notice. Her mind was clearly elsewhere. I hoped that this man, whoever he was, wasn't on our flight. But when we boarded and found our seats, I realized I was wrong. He was sitting in an aisle seat about 15 rows ahead of us. Shannon also insisted on an aisle seat in our row, which was strange because she usually prefers the window seat. I asked her what was up. I messed up because I had reserved a window seat for my wife in advance, leaving me stuck in the middle. But she just said she didn't like her meal and didn't want to bother anyone if she needed to go to the bathroom. So I asked the lady in the aisle seat if she wouldn't mind switching to the window seat because my wife has stomach problems. She agreed right away and we made the switch. I usually don't have trouble sleeping on planes, and the long flight from Minneapolis to Miami would have been a good opportunity. Man, I was supposed to try to sleep on this flight, but I was way too anxious. There was no way I was gonna catch some Z's, even if I tried to fake it. We tossed our bags in the overhead bin, and Shannon shoved her purse under the seat. Once we were up in the air, I threw on my twins' baseball cap and acted like I was snoozing. I left enough room to keep an eye on Shannon. After about 15 minutes, she peeked at me, made sure I was still out, and then got up to go to the bathroom. I quickly moved back to my seat. I was looking down the aisle and I saw that as she walked past the seat where I thought her friend was sitting, she reached out and kind of brushed her hand on the man's shoulder. It was pretty clear that there was something going on between them and it wasn't just a coincidence. They didn't even look at each other, and then Shannon went to the bathroom. When she came back a few minutes later, she looked right at him and he got up and went over to her. When they met in the aisle, instead of one of them stepping aside to let the other pass, they both just stood there. As they stood there, staring at each other, he put his hand on her waist and they chatted. They both had big smiles on their faces as she walked away to her seat. That's when it hit me like a ton of bricks. Those two had definitely known each other for a while and were close in some way. Suddenly, I realized that my marriage was in big trouble and might even be over. I was so upset that I had to look away from Shannon as she sat down and buckled her seatbelt. How could she do this to me, to us? How long had this been going on? Man, I was freaking out about who that guy was and how serious his relationship was with the person he was with. I spent the whole flight trying to figure it out and hoping he wouldn't be on our flight to Nassau. But of course, he ended up being on it. As soon as Shannon and I got on the plane, I saw him sitting 5 rows behind us, just casually reading the in-flight magazine and ignoring us. Shannon, who was feeling better now, took her usual seat by the window. Our trip to Nassau was pretty chill. We landed, grabbed our bags, got a rental car, and headed to the resort. Shannon was texting as I drove, and I asked, "Who are you texting?" She replied, "Just letting my parents and sisters know we arrived safely." I guess that's cool, but I wanted to check for myself. It's funny how suspicions can grow. Our room was amazing, with a balcony overlooking the beach and one of the pools. As we unpacked, I realized I needed to make a move if I wanted to win back my wife. So I went up to Shannon and said, "Do you even realize how much I love you, sweetie? I love you too." She had this weird look in her eyes, like she wasn't really there with me. "I would never do anything to hurt you, you know that, Shannon." She flinched a bit. "I get it, Stu. I know you'd never harm me or our marriage." I reassured her, but she flinched again and I saw tears forming in her eyes. "Of course I know you wouldn't," she said, without looking at me, just staring at the floor. It hit me then that I probably would have lost the argument if she hadn't already given up. I knew she was gonna move on to someone else soon, so I let her go and hurried to the bathroom, hoping I wouldn't miss her before I got there. I sat in the bathroom for a bit, trying to gather my thoughts and asking myself the same questions over and over again. How did this happen? What did I do to push her into another man's arms? Why didn't I see any signs a few weeks or months ago? But most importantly, what can I do to stop her from completely ruining our lives? Is it too late? I washed my face and left the bathroom. Shannon was standing there looking weird. OMG, I just got my period and I didn't have anything with me. "Stu, what about my period?" "It just started, but you already got it a week ago." "How can it start again?" "I don't know, but it doesn't always happen. Maybe the excitement of the vacation caused it. I need to go to the gift shop and get some tampons." She left, closing the door behind her. My first thought was maybe this was a good thing. It might slow down her relationship with her boyfriend, whoever he is. My first thought was like, wait a minute, this doesn't add up. In all the time we've been together, she's never had anything like this happen. She's always been on birth control and her periods have been like clockwork. So why would she lie about it? Unless she's trying to stop me from chasing her so she can focus all her love and passion on some other guy. That's messed up. If that's really what's going on, then she's not the woman I married. No one could be so sneaky and wicked. She must hate me to do something like that. Girl, she organized and paid for this vacation just to ditch me and give everything to some dude I've never even seen before. I was so lost, felt like I was losing my mind. Who was this woman I've been head over heels for over a decade? As I glanced around the room, I saw she left her phone near the TV. I took a chance and turned it on, not sure if she changed the passcode. Turns out, she didn't. She slipped up again. I checked her messages and read the latest from Anthony Eisner. I went back to the "Hey babe, remember when we were on our way to the resort and Stu nearly caught us at the airport? I wanted to kiss you on the plane, but didn't want to make it awkward for everyone else. We're almost at the resort now, let's continue this conversation in our room. Are you in the lobby? Shannon is in my room, Stu is in the bathroom acting weird. Who cares about Anthony, when are you gonna dump Stu so I can have you to myself? I told you from the start I couldn't and wouldn't do it, Tony. Stu is a great husband, he loves me, takes care of me and gives me a life you could never give. You know what I'm better at, Shannon. Haha yes, you're better at that, but I need more than that and Stu gives me that. Stu and I are getting ready to start a family, so the next 2 weeks are just for you. Hey babe, remember how I told Ste I'd stop taking the pill when we got back home? Well, I actually stopped almost 3 weeks ago. So, you have a chance to knock me up and Stu will think it's his. You're such a jerk, but I love it. But what if Stu actually gets you pregnant? Don't worry, I'll just tell him I got my period again and it conveniently lasts the whole vacation. You think he'll believe that? Of course he will, he's head over heels for me and knows I'd never lie to him. When we get back home, I'll make it up to him. Anthony is so dumb, what a loser. I was standing there in complete disbelief. She started to change her phone and then stopped. There's a chance I can use these messages as evidence in the divorce case. I started to switch her phone to mine, but then thought screw her, my phone has all my personal info on it. She got herself into this mess, let her try to get out of it. So I kept both our phones. I figured it wouldn't be long. Yo, she didn't even know her phone was gone before I dipped out. I felt sick to my stomach, literally gagging. I walked up to the window and looked out at the beautiful Caribbean Sea. Just 8 hours ago, I was the happiest guy on earth, getting ready for 2 weeks of romance in paradise with my wife, my love, my everything. And now, my whole world is falling apart. I've never felt so alone, overwhelmed, and pissed off. I wanted to make them pay for making me look like a damn fool. Thankfully, the logical side of my brain finally kicked in and I realized that divorce was the only option. There was no way I could continue to be with my cheating wife, even though I still loved her. But I wanted more than just love, I wanted revenge. As I looked out the window, I saw them in the water, clinging to each other tightly. It made me sick to my stomach, but instead of puking, I took a deep breath and grabbed my DVR, which I had bought specifically for this trip but was now using to record their actions. Shannon must not have seen them from our room's window. So, if she had unpacked, she would have seen the pool right in front of her. The camera had a pretty good zoom, so I was able to get some good close-up shots. I hated looking at it, but I knew I could use it against them later. I needed to come up with a plan fast, but my stomach was cramping and my mind was all foggy. Then it hit me, how was she planning to spend time with her lover if I was around? They must have had a plan to keep me busy while they were together. As I was thinking about it, a simple idea popped into my head. Shannon was planning to spend 2 weeks with her lover. Alright, so I caught Anthony cheating and I want revenge by getting pregnant. Why wait and risk ruining their plans? I needed to figure out how to keep them distracted while they were busy with each other. I was still planning when I saw them kissing again, and Shannon quickly left. She'd be back soon, so I had to keep my cool. I went back to the bathroom and turned on the shower to calm down. If she asked why I was, just tell her I needed to chill out after the flight and wanted to get rid of that gross airline smell. 5 minutes later, I heard the door to our room open and close. I'm back, she said. I brought us water. Great, I'll hop out of the shower in a sec, but why did she bring water? The resort gives us bottled water in the rooms. And then it hit me, she was gonna try to knock me out with sleeping pills. I started thinking about what I should do if I didn't drink the water she brought me. Yo, if I drink this water, she might catch on and things could get awkward. I better leave before she and her partner come back to the room. I turned off the shower and dried off, not sure what to do next. Then Shannon knocked on the door, asking if I was okay because I had been in there for a while. Her voice sounded all worried, but I couldn't tell if she was concerned about me or just worried about being late for a date. When I opened the door, she was standing by the bed, sipping on a drink. So I was pissed off again when she handed me a water bottle, but I tried to stay calm. She gave me another one, and I saw that it was already opened. With the weather changing, we gotta stay hydrated. She looked me in the eyes for a sec before turning away. I took the bottle, pretended to take a big gulp, then snuck off to the bathroom. I spat the water in the sink, emptied the bottle, and grabbed a new one from the bathroom counter. When I got back to the room, I filled up the empty bottle. Shannon gave me this bottle while she was busy unpacking and organizing stuff in drawers and hanging clothes in the closet. I was pretty sure she didn't see me filling the bottle with water until I left the bathroom. I kept sipping on the water and glanced around the room. I noticed she laid out a red dress. Are you planning on wearing that to dinner? If it doesn't fit, it's gonna be a waste. Do you even know how much I love that dress? That made me realize she was dressing for him, not me. I brought it so might as well wear it, she smiled. Aren't you tired after all that traveling? You must be exhausted. Bingo. I thought this jerk really got to me, but how do I act cool? I needed more proof of their affair, so I pretended to be sleepy. I took another sip of water and looked down as if I was tired. Honestly, I felt like I just chugged a bunch of Red Bulls. My heart was racing and I had to really force myself to pretend to be asleep. Now that you mention it, I am a little tired. Hey, I'm tired. What time should we get ready for dinner? I asked casually. They won't start dinner for a few hours. Why don't you just lie down and relax for a bit? I'll wake you up when it's time to get ready, she said sincerely. I yawned and replied, okay, sweetheart. I could use the rest, but don't let me oversleep. I want to spend as much time with you as possible. I really love you. I saw her flinch as if I hit a nerve. I adore you too, she said with little conviction. I laid down on the bed. I laid in bed and pretended to fall asleep. Soon, I was drifting off when I heard Shannon take out her phone to make a call. Oh, it worked. He's passed out. How long will he sleep? Then we can spend the whole night together, she giggled. I almost burst out laughing, but I managed to keep up the act of being asleep. Meet me at the Sandpiper bar in 1 hour. I need to freshen up, she giggled. You're so bad, Elle. I can't wait, lover. Bye, she hung up and continued getting ready for the big night. I glanced at her with my eyes barely open. What a mess. I was getting pissed off again, but I tried my hardest not to show it. She kept getting ready before going into the bathroom and starting to shower. I knew she'd be in there for about 10 minutes, so as soon as I heard the shower door close, I got up and went for her purse. I started digging through it for a sleeping pill or whatever she had put in the water bottle she had given me. I came across a pill bottle with no label saying what was in it. I opened it and found about a dozen little yellow capsules. This must have been it. So, she put something in my drink, and I managed to shake out about 5 tablets. I put the pill bottle back in my purse, wrapped the pills in a Kleenex, and tucked them into the pocket of my shorts as I went back to bed. I heard her turn off the shower, and I drifted off to sleep as she got ready for a date. It took her another 45 minutes to get ready, but as soon as she left, I jumped up and got dressed as fast as possible. While I lay there, I had time to come up with a plan. I needed more video footage. Got some footage of them together to mess up their plans for the rest of the trip. I wasn't sure how I was gonna do it, but I knew they'd both be screwed. The final step was to come home a few days early before our trip was supposed to end and start the divorce process. I planned to break up with Shannon before she could screw me over by draining our bank accounts and canceling our credit cards. That was supposed to be my job, not hers. As soon as I got dressed, I grabbed the video camera I had. I used it earlier that day and walked out the door. It's supposed to work in low light, at least that's what the commercial said. I'll have to test it out on my way to the pub. The resort wasn't that big and there were only 2 bars, both facing the ocean. Sandpiper was the bigger one, with a dance floor. I found a good spot behind some low palm trees that gave me a clear view of the bar while keeping me hidden. My camera's zoom lens let me take some high-quality footage. The bar wasn't too crowded. Man, I was so pissed off when I saw my ex wearing that dumb red dress that I used to love. Now it just made me angry. She was with some guy, and I had to stop myself from running up and punching him. I had to keep reminding myself that I was there to gather evidence, not end up in jail. I started recording them acting all lovey-dovey, laughing and kissing like they were in the Caribbean. Just like Shannon and I used to do. After about an hour, the DJ started playing music and everyone started dancing. Watching them bust a move on the dance floor for another hour was starting to get to me, so I decided to head back to my room solo. But then I saw those 2 sneaking off the dance floor in a hurry. I quietly tailed them from a distance to make sure I wouldn't be seen. They ended up at his room in the back of the place, which was way smaller than ours on the first floor with no view of the water. Must be on a tight budget, I thought to myself. They went inside, and I quickly moved closer to see what was going on. I peeked inside and thankfully the curtains weren't completely closed. The window was slightly open, so I could hear and record their conversation. I was recording everything. It was already midnight, and I was already thinking she was going to leave him for me. But then I overheard their conversation. "Are you sure these drugs are safe?" she asked with a lot of worry in her voice. "Don't worry about him, baby. He'll sleep for at least 6 more hours. He might wake up with a slight headache, but that's it. You only used 1 pill." "Yeah, that's right, only 1. Why? What would the 2 have done? I don't want him to feel terrible." Jerk laughed. "No, don't worry, if you gave him 2, he would pass out for at least 12 hours. Just keep giving him 1 before bedtime. We can spend every night together. I hope you'll be pregnant by the time we leave. Here's an extra key card for my room. If you can get away from him during the day, call me and we'll meet up again here." Then they both laughed, which made me so angry that I threw up. I had heard and seen enough. Alright, so one night I snuck out and went back to my room. Now I had to figure out how to screw them over and make them feel the same pain they caused me. It was clear she was going to be with him every night, so my first move was to change up my own plans. Back in my room, I looked over the notes I had taken. It was tough to face, but I started coming up with a plan to ruin their good time. First step was to find a way to split them up so I could see what they're up to. So I had this dude who was madly in love with me, and I decided to handle him all by myself. Maybe I'll even give him some water like Shannon did to me, and then beat him up while he's sleeping so he won't know who did it. That way, I can get away with it. Now the hard part was figuring out how to separate the 2. That's when I thought about treating Shannon to a spa day. The resort had massages, facials, and even makeup stuff. It would be easy to buy a package deal and give it to her as a gift to show how much I care. I really liked her, so if she tried to say no, I would just tell her the money was non-refundable and make her feel super guilty until she agreed. She's done it to me before, so there was no way she could turn down my gift. Plus, it would keep her busy for a few hours, giving me enough time to give my boyfriend the scolding he deserved. I put on shorts and got back into bed. I couldn't sleep, all I could think about was them being together and how I was going to confront those idiots. Shannon came back into the room. In the morning, it was only about 5 o'clock when she quietly changed her clothes, climbed into bed, and snuggled up against me. I wanted to push her away, but I pretended to be asleep, waiting for the right moment to wake up. Around 7 a.m., I started to stir and slowly began to wake up. Shannon was still fast asleep, so I got up, took a quick shower, and went to find a spa. I was hoping they would open early so I could get her a package to keep her occupied while I finished some tasks. I also wanted to see if I could. "Hey, I'm gonna book a trip back home for late morning or early afternoon tomorrow." I quickly found the spa and made sure it was open. When I went in, I asked about any deals they had on packages. There was a nice young lady at the front desk who helped me pick one out. I was more interested in knowing how long the treatments would last than what they actually involved. After choosing a package that lasted about 3 hours, I asked when the earliest time was that I could schedule it. The woman checked her computer and found out. By 2 p.m., that was the only time she was free. I pondered for a bit before deciding to grab a box to surprise my wife. That settled it. I went out to check out the area, thinking Shannon needed some rest after a late night with her lover who probably wore her out. I got back to the room at 9 a.m. I woke up to find her still knocked out, so I snooped around in her bag and found her phone. I went through her texts and saw one from him that he had sent not too long ago. It said, "Anthony, you were amazing last night. Any chance we can ditch Stu and have some fun all day?" My anger started to bubble up, but I pushed it down. I was good at that, but I knew things were coming to an end. Shannon snapped at me, so I put the phone down and gently kissed her forehead. "Good morning, sleepyhead. Sorry for passing out last night and ruining our dinner plans, but I have a surprise for you," she said with a grin and a yawn. "What kind of surprise?" "I booked you a spa day to make up for last night and to show you how much I adore you," I said, even in my half-asleep state. I noticed her flinch slightly and her eyes filled with uncertainty. That's when I realized she was doubting if she really loved me. I looked into her eyes and asked, "Is everything okay? You don't like my gift?" "No, I love it. I just wish you had asked me first," she said weakly with a smile. "If you had, it wouldn't have been such a big surprise. You don't have to do this. Let's hurry up and go to the spa. I booked us in for 2 p.m. so we can hang out together. Sound good?" She nodded and said, "You're so thoughtful, thank you." As she kissed my cheek, I swear I could smell alcohol on her breath. What a sneaky little liar. "Why don't you freshen up and we'll grab breakfast?" I got out of bed and she sat up, grabbed her purse, and headed to the bathroom. I knew what she was up to, but I didn't want to raise her suspicions, so I pretended to look out the window and noticed something strange. So, Anthony was chillin' by the pool chatting it up with a couple of girls and checking his phone. I saw him start typing and then he quickly put his phone away. One of the girls must have told him about my surprise gift, but he didn't seem mad about it. He went back to chatting with the girls, who were giggling at something. Then he motioned with his hand and the three of them disappeared from view. It crossed my mind that Anthony might be making some backup plans in case Shannon couldn't make it. Having a good time after lunch can be really helpful. Shannon and I were at the buffet table about an hour later, loading up our plates with food. I was piling on the food while she was just having some fruit and coffee. "I'm not hungry, babe. Are you on your period?" I asked. "Yeah, I think so. I just don't feel like eating," she replied, looking away. I couldn't help but wonder what Anthony had said in his message that seemed to upset her. But it didn't matter, because my plan seemed to be working as intended. So, after breakfast, we decided to take a stroll on the beach to check out the water. I brought my camera along and snapped some pics of the beach, palm trees, and Shannon. She'd flash a sweet smile and I'd compliment her on how gorgeous she looked and what an amazing mom she'd be. But then, she suddenly looked uneasy and guilty. "What's up, babe? You okay?" I could see she was starting to feel guilty. "It's not me feeling guilty, I'm good. Just a bit tired. Mind if I head back?" "Head back to my hotel and chill out before going to the spa, no problem at all. I get how crappy it is to be on vacation with your period. Just relax and after your spa sesh, I'll be in your room waiting for you. It'll do you good, trust me." She walked off towards the spa without even saying goodbye, so I guess I'll ignore her for a while. Now I just need to find Anthony and make him pay. As I kept walking along the beach lost in my thoughts, I saw two couples. As I walked towards the woman I knew from chatting with Anthony in the morning, two huge dudes who looked like Vikings joined us. I overheard them saying, "Come on, honey, don't be like that. You knew Dave and I were planning to go fishing and had 2 extra spots. We'll be back before dinner." The woman replied, "Sure, you guys can go do whatever while we're stuck at the motel. There's plenty to do, like shopping in town or chilling by the pool. Hey, so like, at the beach you can totally hit up the gym they got here. Do you think I'm getting chubby? You should start talking to me." "Nah babe, that's not what I meant. I just think there's so much to do here, that's all." As they walked past me on their way back to the resort, I could tell he was getting frustrated but he kept trying with no luck. After wandering around the beach for a bit, I decided to head back and see what the lovesick boy was up to. I was worried that Shannon missed her spa appointment and was with him, but if that's the case, I might be able to help out. I wanted to get more footage of them together, so I wandered around the spa for over an hour until I ended up outside Anthony's room. I could hear people talking inside, but Shannon wasn't one of them. I got my camera ready and cautiously went up to the window. It was risky since it was daytime and there were a lot of people around who could see me. I decided to just set up the camera on the windowsill facing the room and let it record on its own. Then I walked down the path and found a good spot to watch from. I found a spot where I could keep an eye on the entrance and see who was coming out. Time was dragging on, but my patience paid off. The two chicks I saw with Anthony earlier by the pool and then on the beach with those dudes came out of his room. They were all smiles and giggles, like they were in on some secret joke. Once they were out of sight, I grabbed my camera and went back to the room. Shannon wasn't gonna be back from her spa treatments for another hour, so I had plenty of time to go through all the pics I had taken as soon as I could. I got back to the hotel and pulled out my laptop to download all the movies I had taken since we got here. Most of them were of Shannon, but I also checked out the footage of the two girls in his room. It seemed like they had found a way to kill time while their boyfriends were out fishing. Anthony convinced them to team up with him, and then a light bulb went off in my head. If I could time it right, I could leave town while Shannon stayed behind to figure out what went down. I knew she'd have some explaining to do. Going to spike their drinks with a pill tonight. I'll pretend to pass out and hope she goes with Anthony to the bar, dances, drinks, and then they both pass out. I'll sneak a pill into their drinks at the bar. If all goes well, they'll be out cold by the time they get back to his room. But let's be real, perfect timing rarely happens in real life. The second part of the plan is to record Anthony's latest shenanigans on tape. Gotta say, I'm a bit of a genius. I was kinda jealous of that asshole and how he could charm two hot girls. I had a bunch of DVR recordings, so I made 2 copies of his shenanigans that day. I just needed to figure out which rooms to stash them in. I also backed up all my recordings on another DVR just in case. I went to the front desk and managed to send the CDs to my brother Frank's place, along with a note telling him not to watch them or tell anyone I sent them to him. Just in case my plan didn't work out or Shannon found out. So, Anthony caught on to what I was up to and said he'd mess me up if I didn't stop. But, at least the DVD I sent my brother would prove who was behind it all. I saw Shannon finishing up at the spa, so I thought I'd snoop around the resort to see where those 2 ladies and their guys were staying. I bet their boyfriends would want to know what they were up to while they were out deep-sea fishing. I quickly spotted the 2 women I was after, walking away from the pool with towels in hand. I saw them go to their rooms and yup, they went into separate rooms right beside each other. That messed up part of my plan. If Shannon and Anthony do the same thing as last night, I could totally ruin the rest of the vacation by tomorrow morning. I went back to my hotel to call the airline and find out the earliest flight for tomorrow. The earliest I could get was at 10 a.m. Man, I ended up booking my ticket later than I wanted to, but at least it's done. I went back to the front desk right away and told them I needed to leave first thing in the morning for family stuff, so we'd be out of here by 8 a.m. They were understanding and wished me luck. I thanked them and went back to my room, feeling like I was all in on my plan. Even if things don't go as planned, I'll still catch that morning flight and get home before Shannon. At least I can mess with her a bit before she gets back. If all goes well, she'll be stuck here in jail for a few days, maybe even weeks, before going back home. That'll give me plenty of time to totally screw her over. The plan is simple. First, make Shannon think her scheme worked and play like I'm passed out so she and Anthony can hang out. Then, I'll go back to the bar, keep an eye on them, and wait for the perfect moment to slip the stuff Shannon tried on me into their drinks. If I do it right, they should pass out before they know what hit them. Once they're settled in his room, I'll wait for the perfect moment to sneak in. I'll move Shannon back to our room, grab all of Anthony's stuff, his wallet, money, cards, clothes, and anything else he brought with him. And that's when I found it. Anthony had gone into the rooms of the 2 girls he had been fooling around with earlier in the day. He tried to slip the DVR discs under their doors, hoping their boyfriends would find them first. If those guys saw the videos, they'd definitely be pissed to find out what their girls were up to while they were away. Anthony's room number is right there on the tape, so they shouldn't have any trouble finding it. And thanks to Shannon, I decided to mess with Anthony by taking all of her stuff from the trip and leaving her with just her clothes and purse. I even left a note in her purse to let her know who was responsible. Everything was ready, now all I had to do was sit back and wait for the drama to unfold. So Shannon came back to the room around 5:30 p.m. looking more chill and glowing than before. It really sucks to think that she messed up our marriage and I'll never be with this gorgeous woman again. Stu, thanks a ton for the spa day, it was amazing. I feel like a whole new person, she was so happy. I'm so glad you liked it, remember when I told you about it and you weren't too thrilled? Well, I'm thrilled you had a good time. I just wanted to tell you how much I love you. I saw her flinch again, with tears in her eyes. She had tears in her eyes as she said, thanks again, I really loved it. And I love you too. This time, she was speaking with so much more passion and emotion. Anytime, darling. We have 7 dinner reservations tonight, so let's chill before getting ready for dinner, she said. I nodded and she went into the bathroom with her purse. A few minutes later, she came out with 2 bottles of water and offered me one. Drink this. I want to go dancing tonight, so you better start moisturizing now, she said with a wink. Okay, but can I use the bathroom first? I laughed. Sure, go ahead, she repeated. So, I snuck in, chugged the bottle, filled it with sink water, flushed the toilet to act like I was leaving, then went back to bed. Kept sipping the water, pretended to doze off, started fake snoring while watching Shannon get ready for a date with Anthony. She didn't even realize I was there. When she hopped in the shower, I quickly got up, grabbed her phone to see who she was texting. Shannon couldn't make it this afternoon because she had already made plans. Stu bought me a spa package and I couldn't refuse that. I had other things to do today. Shannon, are we still meeting up today? Yeah, after reading that message I wasn't as annoyed because I knew the end was near. All I had to do was follow them to the bar, watch them dance for a while, and then buy them a drink easy. Well, maybe not that easy. I looked through her purse for Anthony's room key card, put it in my pocket, and sorted everything out. Shannon needed a little more time. All right, I need some time to get myself together before I do something totally unexpected. She sat down next to me on the bed and softly touched my cheek. Baby, after this week, I'll be all yours, I promise. I just need to get this off my chest before we start a family. I wish I could say you'd get it, but I have to do this for me. I wish I could tell you, but I know you'll walk away and I need you more than you know right now. I love you so much, but I really have to do this. I truly love you, I really do. At first, I thought she knew I was awake, but then I figured out she was just trying to ease her guilt. By the time she quickly got dressed and left, it was too late. I jumped out of bed, got dressed, and followed her out the door. They ended up going back to the same pub they were at the night before. It was even busier than the night before, and I even saw 2 women with their boyfriends. If my plan worked, they wouldn't meet until the next morning. I found myself in the same area I was in the night before. Before I started filming the evening's events with my camera, I made sure I was as comfortable as possible. The evening played out just like I had pictured, with the 2 of them sitting at a table talking and laughing. It was getting late, so I knew I had to get them some drinks soon. I quickly ran to the bar, making sure they didn't see me. When I got there, I found an empty seat near the waitresses taking drink orders. I ordered a beer and kept an eye on them. Make sure they didn't see me watching as I checked them out. I saw a waitress heading over to their table to take their drink orders. She went back to the bar and told the bartender what she needed. Luckily, that was her only order. I eavesdropped on their convo, and when the bartender went to fix their drinks, I waved down another bartender and ordered the same drinks. The bartender put the drinks on the waitress's tray while she was distracted. Chatting with another server, my drinks arrived. I paid up, grabbed a shot glass, cracked open a capsule, and mixed it into my drink. It fizzed a bit, but looked good. I did the same with another capsule, then I was good to go. With a drink in each hand, I maneuvered past the waitress, making sure she couldn't get to the bar. I switched quickly and happily. The pub was packed, so I casually snuck past the waitress to drop off the drinks for the happy couple. I quickly left the bar and went back to my spot outside to watch and wait. I kept an eye on the situation as the waitress brought their drinks, hoping I picked the right moment. It was a little after 1 a.m. So, if everything went according to plan, they'd be out walking until around 10:01 a.m., which fit perfectly with the rest of my plan. All they had to do was finish their drinks and head back to Anthony's room before falling asleep. They were just sitting there, sipping their drinks, and I started to get worried. What if they don't finish their drinks? Then, Anthony leaned over and said something to Shannon. She smiled, and they both quickly downed the rest of their drinks before leaving the bar. Thank God I quickly followed behind them. Shannon was stumbling and having trouble walking because they were in a rush to get back to the room. Anthony grabbed her hand, put his arm around her, and helped her walk. By the time they reached his room, Anthony was also wobbling. When they got to his door, Shannon could barely stand and he was getting shakier. He fumbled for the key card and finally managed to open the door after a few weak attempts. Once they were inside, the door shut and I waited a few minutes. Before I grabbed the key card, I swiped from Shannon's purse and opened the door. I could hear Anthony's voice as I walked into the room. He was mumbling something like, "What's wrong with you, baby? You didn't drink that much," in a slurred voice. When I walked in, I realized he was going to be hungover. Shannon was passed out face down on the bed, and Anthony was trying to wake her up by shaking her. He kept saying, "Come on now, baby, it's time to do something." He looked around and saw me walking in, and asked, "Hey, who are you?" He started to straighten up. Almost tripped and fell, "Just her dumb husband. Why not just pass out like a decent guy so I can get her out of here?" Right on cue, he slowly dropped to the floor and stayed there. As he moved closer to the bed, I started looking for his cell phone, which was just lying on the floor next to him. I grabbed it and started going through his messages and photos. Most of them were harmless, but then I noticed he had a folder full of dozens of unpaid photos. I found a bunch of pics of random ladies, didn't know most of them. But as I kept looking, I saw some pics of Shannon. Some were teachers at Sean in school, others were wives of male teachers. Anthony seems like a player, messing around with other guys' wives. This is gonna blow up. I went through his contacts and decided to share these pics, including ones of my soon-to-be ex-wife. So, I had to tag and email all the pics to everyone on his list, even the husbands of the wives he took pics of. When he got back, he was in for a rude surprise. I transferred Shannon's pics and videos to her phone, then to mine. Later on, I used them for my own reasons, some might call it blackmail. After I turned off his phone, I started gathering all his stuff he brought on vacation, clothes, toiletries, and whatnot, and just tossed them around. So, I was going through this dude's stuff, right? Found his wallet, credit cards, ID, and passport. Can't leave the island without that, I knew. After I finished ransacking his suitcase, I turned to Shannon. She was still passed out on the bed, leg hanging off. I gently flipped her over, carried her to my room, and laid her on our bed. Then I went back to the loser's room to grab the rest of his stuff. I kept his phone, wallet, and cash because I thought I deserved to be paid for them. After checking his room and making sure he didn't have anything else to take, I even took off his shoes. On my way back to the room, I found a trash can at the resort and threw his suitcase and shoes in it, covering them with garbage so they wouldn't be found. When I got back to the room, I started packing my stuff and also Shannon's suitcase, being just as careful with its contents. "Anthony, I was about to leave. Over there, she's got her clothes, purse, and a wallet that's totally empty except for the note I left." As I was finishing up packing, I looked at the clock and saw it was already 4 a.m. I needed to be at the airport by 9 a.m. Shannon was passed out and wouldn't wake up until at least noon since she was still drinking until 2 a.m. I was expecting Anthony to show up around 10 a.m. I could leave before they woke up. Before leaving the room, I needed to do one more thing. I grabbed the 2 DVR discs I made earlier and went to the rooms where the 2 women and their boyfriend were staying. I slid a disc under each of their doors before going back to my room. When I saw Shannon sleeping peacefully on the bed, I felt a huge sense of loss and sadness. I really wanted to start a family with her, but she had different plans and I couldn't forgive her for that. I double-checked the room to make sure I had everything packed, then I grabbed Shannon's suitcase and went back to the dumpster where I ditched Anthony's suitcase and her Viper. Back in the room, I went through Shannon's purse to make sure it was empty and didn't have any cash, cards, or passports. I wanted to make it just as hard for her to come home as it was for Anthony. I plopped down in one of the chairs in the room, feeling exhausted but already thinking about my next move. Once I got home, I'd first drain our bank accounts, pay off and cancel all our credit cards. Then I'd pack up all my stuff and get it out of our house. I knew I'd have to find a storage place to keep it all, but I didn't care. I just wanted out of this fake marriage and our house. Before I knew it, I was crashing and it was almost 7 a.m. When I woke up and got out of the chair I was crashed out in, I walked over to the bed, checked on Shannon, and picked her up in my arms to take her out of the room. I brought her down to the pool and left her on a lounge chair because I didn't want her to be there when the cleaners came to tidy up for the next guests. I grabbed my stuff, double-checked to make sure I had everything, and was about to leave when I realized I still had Anthony's phone. Then, a light bulb went off in my head and I went back to the pool to grab Shannon's phone. And that's when I started sending these pics and vids to everyone on her contacts except for her young nieces and nephews. I knew her mom, dad, sisters, and co-workers would want to see. So, I went to the front desk, grabbed some duct tape, took out her phone's battery, taped up the contacts, and put the battery back in. Looked like her battery died. And I made sure she didn't have a charger cord handy, just in case. She didn't have any money, so it took a while for her phone to start working. It was around 8 a.m. when I heard yelling and screaming. It was the boyfriend of one of the two women Anthony was with yesterday. Apparently, their ex-boyfriends had seen the footage I managed to sneak under their door. "You're an idiot. Let your family know the wedding's off and I never want to see you again, jerk. Find your own way home," the guy was shouting at his girlfriend while she begged him. The other guy just stared at him with a blank expression. "Tough situation, babe. Hey, don't bail on me." I said sorry, it was a dumb mistake. And then you went off, making her cry. "You're a cheater, go back to your new man. But I don't think things will get better from here on out." He said it so coldly, it gave me chills. I wonder what happened to Anthony, guess I'll never find out. Then I heard an ambulance siren outside, and saw the building super leading the paramedics in. I walked to Anthony's room, hoping he was okay. Other people were gathering to see what all the fuss was about. I just grabbed a cab and headed to the airport. When I turned on my phone, I saw there was a voicemail, so I listened to my brother Frank's message. He was like, "Stu, what's happening over there? I got a bunch of pics of Shannon, what's going on? Call me back ASAP." When I got to the airport and waited to board the plane, I hit him up and told him what was up. Shannon was getting cozy with Anthony while we were on vacay, trying to get knocked up by him. My bro was shook at first, thinking I was messing with him. But after I made him watch the video again, he apologized and said to hit him up if I needed anything. I thanked him, ended the call, and found myself flying back home solo. When I turned on Anthony's phone after landing, I saw a bunch of voicemails and over 30 texts waiting for me. So, I was threatening to hurt him because it turns out the photos and videos I sent weren't a hit. I grabbed my stuff and got my car from the parking lot, then drove home. As I was driving, I started thinking about what to do next. Divorce was an option, but I didn't want her getting half of everything. She cheats and still gets half in the divorce, which isn't right. As I drove, another idea started forming in my head, so I mentally made a list of what I needed and how to do it. She messed up our marriage. I was gonna give her hell when I got home. I hit up my bro to help me move my stuff out before Shannon got back, so she'd walk into an empty crib. When I finally checked my phone, I had over 20 voicemails and a bunch of texts, mostly from Shannon's sis freaking out about why Shannon wasn't answering her calls, and other fam members too. When I asked around, I was so glad to see that Shannon hadn't left any voicemails or texts suggesting her phone was out of order and she didn't know what was going on. I couldn't help but smile as I imagined her finally getting her phone working and then realizing all the messages asking about the photos and videos she sent. She was in for a rude awakening. The first thing I did was cancel all our credit cards and move the money from our joint bank account to my own. Started packing up my stuff and all the things I wanted to keep, like the gifts Shannon had given me over the years. We were thinking of tossing them out, unless they were valuable, in which case I'd sell them online or take them to a pawn shop. When I got home, my landline was disconnected, so anyone trying to reach me had to call my cell. It was around 11 p.m. So, I finally checked my phone and saw a bunch of texts and voicemails from Shannon. It looks like she managed to fix her phone. The first messages were like, "Where are you? Why did you ditch me? Are you okay?" But then she got some photos sent from her phone to everyone in her contacts, and she was not happy. She was like, "Why did you do this to me? Couldn't we have talked it out first? I just ignored it. I ignored the rest of her texts because I knew it would just piss her off more. The next day was crazy busy. I didn't know when Shannon would be back, so I had to move fast. First, I went shopping to pack up my stuff and rent a big storage unit. Then, I hit up the bank to make sure there wasn't much cash left in our shared account. I transferred the money to my business account, planning to cash out and skip town. But I still had some things to take care of before I could bail. We used to live in a tiny house, starting small and adding on as our family grew. It was just a simple 2-bedroom place with a small bathroom and kitchen, nothing fancy. I owned a home remodeling business and was determined to make our place really stand out. I had big plans and was running around town getting everything ready for Shannon's arrival at the house. Being in the remodeling business, I knew all about building load-bearing walls and such. Armed with this info, I was ready to start a big renovation on our house, but not in the usual way. Later that morning, my brother Frank showed up with his pickup truck. After we talked about my situation, we started loading up all my stuff into his truck. It took almost 5 hours and 3 trips to the storage unit, but I was finally moved in by that evening. I didn't bother telling Frank about my plans for the house or the surprise Shannon had for me. I knew he'd try to talk me out of it, so I kept quiet. Tell him he did ask me about my future plans, probably to get out of town and leave this terrible marriage behind. I'm not going to divorce him, but I won't be here when she comes back. She can have the house, but that's it. Frank shook his head. That won't work. She'll just hire a lawyer and find you. Just get it over with, divorce that cheating jerk. Trying to run will only make things worse. I get it, when she catches up to you, you'll be screwed. Man, I'm so pissed off and hurt right now, but I can't let my feelings control my actions. I need to get it together, hire a lawyer, and split everything with her. That jerk cheated on me, tried to have a baby with some loser, and then tried to pass it off as mine. She doesn't deserve a dime, and that's exactly what she's gonna get. I'm not gonna bother with a divorce, I'm just gonna leave her broke and airing out all her dirty laundry. Frank knows he can't change my mind, I'm too stubborn for that. Convince me otherwise, he bounced, but not before telling me to mull it over and not rush into anything. I'd been mulling it over ever since I caught her locking lips with her boo. It was time to put my scheme into motion. I started fixing up the house that night and worked on it until the crack of dawn. I still didn't know when Shannon would be back, so I had to hustle. The snow came through for me, with a big storm brewing that shut down a bunch of airports. Flights were getting cancelled left and right, giving me some extra time too. So I was trying to finish up my remodeling project and the store form came through with an extra 8 to 12 inches of snow, which was actually perfect for covering up the foot of snow still on the ground and roofs. I wasn't really answering the phone much cause I had just gotten back for like 2 days, but I kept seeing calls from Shannon. Finally, I decided to pick up and ask her for some info. Look, babe, it was just a huge dumb mistake on my part. I didn't mean for things to go down like that. I've come this far and I'm ready to do whatever it takes. But, excuse me, I could hear her crying but it didn't affect me at all. I was so done with her, but for now, I had to keep it together, give her a little hope and then crush it at the right moment. Shannon, you hurt me more than anyone ever has. I don't know if I can forgive you or trust you again. I just want to know why. Why did you treat me like this? Do you not love me? Am I not good enough for you? I was speaking calmly, but with a sad tone in my voice. I wanted to scream on the phone that she's a cheater and an idiot that I never want to see again. I needed to tell her that we have a shot at getting back together. Let me explain, babe, it was all meaningless and he didn't mean a thing. You mean everything to me, you're my whole world, the reason I exist. Please, God, forgive me. She started crying and I hesitated for a few minutes before saying, babe, I'm just not sure. I love you, but you broke my heart. I doubt we can fix it. No, honey, we can work it out. If we can get through this, we'll have an amazing. Hey babe, let's talk about our love and connection when I get home. I could tell she was desperate when she called. I don't know when you'll be back. The problem is I don't have a passport or a plane ticket. My sister is sending me money now. My credit cards got stolen, so please call the companies and cancel them ASAP. It's crazy how she went from begging to be taken back to asking to cancel her cards. What a bold move. Alright, I'll get started on it now so you won't know when you'll be back in a few days. I talked to the US consulate and they're getting me a new passport, so let me know when you're getting ready to leave, okay? Yeah, I still love you and can't wait to see you when you get back. I hung up so she won't come back for a while, which gives me enough time to finish all the home improvement projects and start my new life without any distractions. The next day, Frank gave me a call to see how I was doing and asked me to come over for dinner. I said yes because I hadn't had a home-cooked meal in forever. I had been surviving on pizza and Chinese takeout. After talking to Frank, I promised him I wouldn't do anything crazy. Then Shannon called me and said, "Hey babe, guess what? I'm getting a new passport soon. All I need now is a plane ticket to come home. I should be able to fly in a few days, and if I can get an early flight, I'll be home in no time. Hey, can you meet me at the airport later this afternoon? I really need to talk to you as soon as possible." "That's not a good idea, Shannon. You should have your sister pick you up and take you home. We can talk when you get there. I'll just let her follow me. By the time she gets home, I'll be at least 100 miles away." "Okay, baby, I love you and I believe that if you give me a chance, we can work this out." "Yeah, sure, we'll talk and see. I'm not making any promises." She lied to me as much as I lied to her. Now I know when she... Alright, so I was gonna head home to give myself some time to do some last-minute stuff to make sure I don't leave any clues before skipping town. First, I sold my work truck and got a decent used one, but I registered it under a friend's name. Then, I had to break the news to my employees that I was shutting down my business because of my upcoming divorce. I felt bad for dropping it on them like that, but I had to explain what was going on before I left. After that, I called up this buddy from college who lives in Colorado. When we graduated, he offered me the chance to come out there and work with him. So, I told him that since he has winter and summer homes, we could have jobs all year round. He was happy to hear from me, but he was shocked about what went down between me and Shannon. He knew her back when we were dating and always thought we were a good fit. I asked if his college offer was still on the table or if he needed a top-notch handyman. He said he's got more work now thanks to the new marijuana laws, and his workload has tripled in the past year. I'd be stoked to work for him. I was wondering if we could do it on the down low because I didn't want Shannon to know where I was going and I didn't want her getting any money from me. Everything was all set, all I had to do was leave. Shannon kept calling me multiple times a day, saying she loved me and asking for forgiveness. She also kept me updated on when she was coming home and how things would be better when she got back. Finally, the day she was supposed to return came. I packed up my new truck and cleared out all my stuff from the house. Whatever was left belonged to her. Shannon didn't give a damn about me, so I sneaked out real early in the morning to leave town without anyone catching on. I asked my neighbor across the street to help me out by keeping an eye on when Shannon was gonna be back home. I told him I'd give him a heads up on when she'd be back since I had a surprise for her. He had no clue about our marriage troubles and was totally cool with it, so he said he'd wait for my call. The next day, everything was set and I hit the road. Headed out of town and going south to start my new life without Shannon. It's gonna take me about 2 days of driving to get to my friend's place. By the time I get there, Shannon will probably be back home. As I drove, I started feeling less mad and more at peace than I have in the past week. Ever since I caught Shannon and Anthony together at the pool, I felt like my life went down the drain. But now, I'm slowly pulling myself out of that mess. Around noon, Shannon called and said she'll be back home tomorrow around 4 in the afternoon. She asked me again if I was supposed to pick her up from the airport, but I told her I had some stuff to take care of and that I'd be home after her. I told her she could just let me in when she got there. Then I called my neighbor and asked him to be ready with a camera to film the surprise I had planned for my wife. The next day, I was in Colorado, just an hour away from my friend's house, when Shannon called me saying the house had collapsed, probably because of the snow. I had just put the key in the door and turned it when I heard a loud noise. "Oh man, the roof caved in. Our house is wrecked." Shannon started crying. "Don't worry, I'm sure your parents are still in your room," I reassured her. "As for me, I've already found another place to stay," I said with a smile. "What do you mean our house is gone? How can you be so happy about this?" Shannon started to get mad. "Well, my renovation project went exactly as planned. I set it up so the house would collapse in on itself when she opened the door. I put some temporary supports in the basement and then cut all the posts. So, I basically destroyed our house with a chainsaw. I rigged the front door lock to a switch connected to a cheap winch I got from a pawn shop. Then, with some ropes and braces, I helped our house come crashing down. It wasn't just the snow that made it collapse, it was me. Just like how you ruined our marriage. Good luck finding a new place to live, because I'm already on my way to my new home. I left her and called my neighbor. Can you believe what just went down? Your house straight up collapsed. Must have been all that dang snow weighing it down. But honestly, there wasn't even that much snow, so I don't get how it did that much damage. I managed to film the whole thing, and your wife is thankfully alright. She was trying to open the door when it all went down, and then bam, she just fell on top of herself. Crazy stuff. I told him to send me the video when he can, I want to keep a copy of it. After chatting with him, I hung up. Hey, so I was on the phone and just carrying on with my new life. It's been like 3 years now and I've really settled in here in Colorado. I still keep in touch with a few friends back in Minnesota and try to stay updated on what's happening there. I didn't want to reach out to my family directly because I was afraid they'd spill the beans to Shannon about where I'm living now. Turns out Shannon got what she wanted and ended up pregnant with Anthony's baby. She tried telling everyone it was mine, saying I couldn't handle being a dad and would just run off like a coward. Even my mom bought into it because she was desperate for a grandkid. I reached out to a friend who got in touch with my brother and told him to make Shannon take a DNA test on the baby and me. If I was a distant relative, I'd have a strong match with my brother. If not, there would be no match. Stupidly, she agreed. The results came back and my mom kicked her out, screaming at her to never come back with that baby. And Anthony? It looks like he got his ass kicked by those two guys. So, this dude ended up in the hospital for more than a week before he could bounce back home. And guess what? When he finally did get back home, there were a bunch of other dudes, probably his ex-husbands, waiting for him. They were all trying to add their 2 cents, but it seems like he's done with all that drama now. Word on the street is that he's out of the game for good. Thanks for tuning into today's story. If you liked it, hit that like button and subscribe. And hey, if you've got a juicy story of your own to share. If you need help with someone else's situation, just hit me up. Stay safe.